Hello, I'm John McBride. Thank you for joining me to talk about the Kidai Shoran picture scroll. This is a complete view of the scroll painted in 1805. It's an aerial view of the Nihonbashi Avenue. This is a shopping precinct of old Edo, or today's Tokyo. It is 12.3 meters long and 43 centimeters high. The title of the scroll, Kidai Shoran, means superior scenery of a brilliant age. The scroll is a resource for understanding the vibrance of 19th century Edo street life. I will describe the Edo period, discuss why the scroll is in Berlin, ponder who the artist is, and then we'll have some fun exploring the streetscape of contemporary Tokyo and comparing it with that depicted in the scroll. First, the Edo period, which was 1603 to 1867. Japan's shogunate, or military government, was based in Edo. The shogun, or head of the government, resided in Edo, while the emperor, as head of state, never moved from the capital of Kyoto. Tokugawa Ieyasu was the first Edo shogun. Our scroll was painted at the time of the 11th shogun, Ienari. He was the longest-serving shogun, 50 years, and his time in office was marked by an era of pleasure, excess, and corruption. Perhaps a reason for the number of well-appointed shops along our scroll. Living standards rose consistently during the period, and Edo's population exceeded 1 million. The period saw the rise of the merchant class, the owners of the shops we will see in the scroll. During the Edo period, a system of regular attendance to the capital, paying one's respects to the shogun, was imposed on just over 250 provincial lords from all over Japan. A system of roads was improved in the early 1600s to facilitate the postal system, the potential need for movement of troops, and the travel requirements of these provincial lords. The 0-mile marker for all of these roads was Nihonbashi, and so Edo became the center of the nation, and Nihonbashi Bridge was the center of Edo city life. Our scroll covers the shopping street between Nihonbashi Bridge and the old Imagawa Bridge, a distance of 764 meters, about half a mile. The area is just to the east of the Imperial Palace, a location of Edo Castle, and is 1 kilometer or about 15 minutes walk from Tokyo Station. Imagawa Bridge no longer exists, with the small river having been covered with tarmac. A map from as late as 1849 shows the bridge clearly. Next, why is the scroll in Berlin? The scroll was discovered in the collection of the Museum of Asian Art, Berlin. It was donated to the museum in 1995 by the Kuster family as a Chinese work. Later, an inheritance dispute caused the scroll to be re-examined. At that time, curator Dr. Khan Trin established the work as Japanese, and this was confirmed by Professor Kobayashi Tadashi in 1999. It is unknown how the scroll made its way into Professor Kuster's collection. Professor Kuster's mistaking the scroll as Chinese is completely understandable. The title, read from right to left, is Ki, prosperous, Dai, age, Sho, superlative, and Ran, views. The character Ki can mean enjoyable, or brilliance, or expansive. Now, the most famous Chinese emperor, Kangxi, has this character Qi in his name. He was the third emperor of the Qing dynasty and reigned for 61 years, the longest of any Chinese emperor. He initiated the brilliant, prosperous period known as Hai Qing, which continued for a number of generations after his death. Possibly known to Professor Kuster was the Wanshu Shengdian, an account of celebrations held in Beijing in 1713 on the occasion of Emperor Kangqi's 60th birthday. The illustrated manuscript describes the celebratory parade from the Forbidden City to the outskirts of Beijing. The celebratory mood is captured perfectly, including a young child led by his father carrying a study desk on the child's first day of school. Now, this scene is copied exactly in our Kidai Shoran, as we see on the right here. A curator at the Edo Tokyo Museum, Eriguchi Yuko sensei, drew comparisons between the Kidai Shoran and the illustrated Chinese manuscript. Eriguchi sensei writes that it is likely that either the commissioner or the artist of the Kidai Shoran had access to a copy of the Chinese text. Eriguchi sensei's research was the subject of an exhibition in 2017 at the Edo Tokyo Museum. It was called Edo and Beijing, Cities and Urban Life in the 18th Century. In December 2020, the Berlin Museum of Asian Art was incorporated into the magnificent new Humboldt Forum, the most expensive cultural project in Europe. It's built on the Berlin Island Cultural Precinct in the reconstructed Royal Palace with contemporary interiors by Franco Stella. A major reference is by Professor Kobayashi Tadashi, who confirmed in Berlin that the scroll was Japanese in 1999. And his book was translated in 2020 by Juliet Winters Carpenter. The scroll was first displayed in Berlin in 2000 to celebrate the opening of the new Japan galleries of the Museum of Asian Art. It then traveled to Japan on 2 occasions in 2003 and 2006 for exhibitions at the Edo Tokyo Museum, celebrating the museum's 10th anniversary and the 400th anniversary of the establishment of the Edo shogunate, and at the opening of the Mitsui Memorial Museum in 2006. Now, while in Tokyo, a 1.4 times sized facsimile was produced by the Nihonbashi Preservation Society. And this facsimile is on permanent display in Tokyo Metro's basement concourse of Mitsukoshi-mae subway station, which you see here. This has been on display since 2009. A Japanese restaurant at the back of Mitsukoshi department store has an animated version of the scroll, which I love. I particularly like the prancing horse of the senior samurai warrior here. Another reference is my English translation and additional writings available on Wikipedia. And finally, this is an excellent website provided by the Nihonbashi Preservation Society with descriptions of each numbered scene and an excellent audio guide. Next, who was the artist? The short answer is we don't know. However, the calligrapher of the title characters is known by his seals, which you see on the right and the left there. Now, the top seal says Sajun's seal, and the bottom one says Toshu. When the scroll is rolled up, the title slip is visible, also by Toshu. And Toshu has placed the character for heaven at the bottom of the title slip, meaning the scroll is one of a group of 2 or 3 works. The other scrolls or scroll would have the character for earth, if it is a diptych, so heaven and earth, and a third character for mankind, if it is a triptych. The whereabouts of these other scrolls is unknown. They likely contain views of perhaps the other side of the street, or perhaps 1 or 2 other popular Edo shopping precincts. While the artist is unknown, one theory suggests the artist was Santo Kyoden, a relative of Toshu's. Sano Toshu lacked an heir, and between 1804 and 1807, about the time our scroll was painted, he adopted Santo Kyoden's younger brother, Kyozan, as a son-in-law. Kyoden was a best-selling popular novel writer and an accomplished artist, painting under the name Kitao Masanobu. This is his illustrated book, The Changing Seasons, reminiscent of the townsfolk who appear in our scroll. We do know when the scroll was produced, 1805. We know this from a date placed on the collection box carried by parishioners of Ekoin Temple in the scroll. The collection box says Ekoin Bunka Ni, or the second year of Bunka, Ekoin Temple, 1805. Ekoin Temple stands today, and its main hall indeed burned down just before our scroll was painted. The temple commemorates the 100,000 victims of the Meireki fire of 1657, when 60% of the city was destroyed. Ekoin was the main site of sumo wrestling. All main tournaments took place at Ekoin between 1833 and 1909. The site would become the location of the original National Sumo Stadium, in use from 1909 until 1983, when it was replaced by the current Sumo National Stadium in nearby Ryogoku. Okay, let's have some fun comparing the shops depicted in our scroll with Tokyo's contemporary streetscape. Now, the scroll ends at Nihonbashi Bridge, having traveled 764 meters west along Nihonbashi Avenue, known in the Edo period as Tori, or the Avenue. Today it's called Chuo Dori, or Central Avenue. The bridge spans Nihonbashi River, with Mount Fuji and the Chiyoda Castle, or Edo Castle, today's Imperial Palace, in the background. The photo is of the final wooden version of the Nihonbashi Bridge. You can see the roof of the public notice board in the scroll, the brass onion bulb-shaped giboshi on top of the railings, and the small roofs protecting the beams. Today's granite bridge dates to 1911. The bridge is the 0-mile point for Japan's main highways. It is adorned with 4 lions as protective deities of the city, inspired by shrine Koma Inu and Western lions. The lions have their protective paws on what is still the symbol of Tokyo metropolis. There are also 4 Chinese mythical creatures called Kirin, these versions with wings, which is not usual. Their wings represent the city flying towards its future. The bridge was damaged on 10 February 1945 in an incendiary bombing of the city, which was the 3rd occasion on which over 100,000 of its citizens were killed by fire. A boat upstream caught fire and slammed into the bridge. The damage has never been repaired, reminding us of the futility of war. A section of the overhead expressway here at Nihonbashi, built for the 1964 Olympics, will be placed underground at immense expense. Work has already commenced on this project and will be completed by 2040. You can see the sections that have been removed on either side there already. And this will return clear skies above Tokyo's most important central landmark. The development is by Mitsui Corporation, whose original Edo period business, the Echigoya, is a main feature in our scroll. Mitsui has built the large-scale Koreedo buildings around the bridge, which are sensitive to the history of the Nihonbashi area. At the southern foot of the Nihonbashi Bridge was the Kosatsuba, or notice board. This was how the warrior ruling class communicated with its subjects, the merchant, artisan, and farmer classes. There were two types of notices. One type was sadame laws, long-term regulations displayed under a roof, and oboe, or short-term regulations, which could be placed outside. On the right side, you see there. The artist has even aged the wooden boards on the right as they are exposed to the weather. The regulations were written as kanamajiri bun, a type of script more easily understood by the masses. The regulations would be recited by young children at terakoya schools, so they knew the wording by heart. Now, the notice boards are so detailed in our scroll that the lettering can be clearly read. The 7 standard notices were 1, strive in your occupation, do not gamble or fight. 2, a warning about poisons, counterfeit money. 3, the discharge of firearms being banned. 4, the banning of Christianity and other banned violent Nichiren sects, and rewards noted for dobbing in Christians or priests. 5 and 6 dealt with porterage rates, both for horses and humans, and 7 was about regulations for prevention of fire. Now, these regulations were the result of a major reform in the 1720s, known as the Kyoho reforms. The reforms were aimed at making the Tokugawa shogunate financially solvent. They relaxed some Confucian principles, for example, that money was defiling versus the necessity for a cash economy, and also relaxed the emphasis on frugality and allowed the formation of merchant guilds to allow greater control and, of course, taxation. The ban on Western books was lifted at this time, with the exception of books about Christianity. The landscape artist Utagawa Hiroshige depicted the notice boards in the first print of his series, The 53 Stations of the Tokaido. It contains the entourage of a feudal lord crossing Nihonbashi Bridge, departing Edo in the early morning, but importantly shows the notice boards there. A restored version of one of these notice board stands at Magome along the Nakasendo, one of the 5 major highways of Japan. The notices could only be replaced with strict permission from the shogunate, and the best calligraphers were used to rewrite the regulations in proper script befitting the shogunate. A well-dressed samurai looks out towards Mount Fuji and Edo Castle. He shades his eyes in deference to the castle. He has 2 swords in his sash, a black silk overjacket or haori with his family white crest on the back, and a dandy pair of rouge silk trousers. Mount Fuji is magnificent, with Edo Castle painted as if located at its base and equated with Mount Fuji's lofty, sacred nature. It was improper to look down upon the castle. The castle actually sits in the center of the city, and its foundation stones for the castle keep and the expansive east gardens are open to the public. Fuji remains magnificent, best viewed in the clear skies of winter, but today it's not visible from anywhere at street level in the city. On the peak of the rounded Nihonbashi Bridge is a high-ranking samurai, perhaps on his way to visit Edo Castle and pay his respects to the shogun. He is accompanied by his luggage bearers and lance-bearing vanguard. Children frolic in the Nihonbashi River, an indication of peaceful times. We see the little roofs protecting the bridge girders from the elements and extending the life of the wooden bridge, as we saw in the photograph from 1872. We see the giboshi, onion-shaped adornments on the railings. There is a life-sized model of the bridge in the Edo Tokyo Museum, and a giboshi from the 1658 bridge is on display at Kuroeya. Kuroeya is a lacquerware store which has been in business at the base of the bridge for over 300 years. Its old sign hangs outside, and the highest quality lacquerware is displayed inside. This is the early 20th century store before it was replaced by the modern building of today. There is an old song about the bridge called Oedo Nihonbashi, which describes the excitement travelers felt as they set off down the Tokaido towards Kyoto. The gates opened at 4 a.m. The song is about a young clerk apprenticed to an Edo store when he was just a child. He comes of age and he's finally allowed to return to his home province. Kochae, kochae. This is the call of the touts of the tea houses at each of the 53 post towns on the way to Kyoto. So, kochae, kochae, come this way, come this way. The scroll continues into the busy Muromachi fish market, the pantry of the city. 6 oared high-speed rowboats deliver the freshest of fish to the center of the city from nearby Boso Peninsula. They were called Oshiokuri Bune. The fish market moved to Tsukiji in 1923 after the Kanto earthquake destroyed the city, the second occasion the city lost 100,000 souls due to fire. And then from Tsukiji to Toyosu in 2018. While somewhat sanitized in its new building in Toyosu, the visit today is at least safe for tourists, and the early morning tuna auctions are still fascinating. We see 2 guardhouses at the corner of Kugidana Street. The one on the right is a volunteer guardhouse staffed by local shop owners, and on the left a guardhouse with employed guards provided by the shogunate. These guardhouses stood at all town entrances throughout the city and became the Japanese Koban police box system, often given as a reason for Tokyo's low level of crime. A police box still stands at the foot of Nihonbashi Bridge. Delicious fresh bonito tuna is on display. A poem from the late 17th century is Meni wa aoba yama hototo gisu hatsugatsuo. Spring's new leaves, nightingales in the mountains, and the season's first bonito. This poem expresses the joy that the people of Edo experienced with the change of seasons, represented by eating the first of the season's food. Another important use of bonito tuna is to dry and smoke it. The shavings are called katsuobushi and are an ingredient in making stock, which is the core of all Japanese cuisine. Past Japanese generations recall the sound of their mothers making miso soup for breakfast as they shaved fresh katsuobushi. Near our bonito salesman today stands the Yamatoya Katsuobushi store. Yamatoya was founded in the last year of the Edo period, 1867. The founder was from Echigo, today's Niigata prefecture. Records of the store's history were lost in the 1923 Great Kanto earthquake and fire. Initially, Yamatoya was a soba noodle restaurant and changed its business to a katsuobushi store after World War II. The friendly managing director is Mr. Toyama Junichiro, the sixth generation of his family to run the store. His father invented a type of katsuobushi which is shaved to a 0.01 millimeter thickness or thinness and is sprinkled on top of rice. These days, Mr. Toyama is focused on international customers and promoting the history of the Nihonbashi area. He represents an interesting new generation of store owners. He explains that competition among the many soba noodle stores in Nihonbashi was so intense that his ancestors decided to supply the ingredients for stock to these many stores, and sales of katsuobushi flourished. On the next block is the Yamatoya Nori, or seaweed, store established after the Bunka Great Fire of 1806. The store is in a contemporary building today. The manager is the seventh generation, Yamamoto Takahiro. He was born in 1998 and initially had a career in corporate banking. When his father retired, he decided to take over the family business. His store sells the highest quality nori. These high-priced cans of nori are used as gifts. The history of this gift giving is interesting. It was not until the 1950s that the life cycle of nori was understood. Nori is harvested in the depths of winter, and during the summer, the nori spawn inside clams. And until this was understood, nori cultivation was hit and miss. And so it was known as the lucky seaweed, lucky if the season was a good one. Nori is still given as a lucky gift in the summer and winter gift-giving seasons. Nearby, Yamamotoyama was established in 1690 and is well regarded for Japanese green tea. The 11th generation, Yamamoto Nami-san, is training in the US to take over the main business in Japan. The company invented high-quality sencha Japanese green tea bags. Muromachi Street today is a quiet side street of Nihonbashi with many stores and restaurants still related to the early fish market history. Some stores still have the word ise in them, such as the famous Isedaya Eel restaurant, indicating the original merchant family of this store came from the Ise region near Nagoya. And we are reminded of the famous saying, plentiful in Edo are Ise stores, Inari shrines, the shrine of commerce, and dog excrement. And indeed, in our scroll, there are images of 20 stray dogs. This brings us to the end of part 1. Please join me again for part 2, examining the remaining parts of the scroll. Thank you.